Welcome back to the shop. Today I'm stepping out of my comfort zone a little bit. I'm forging a corkscrew with an integral bolster. Recently I've been trying to get better at integral bolsters, so most of my non-commissioned projects are going to include them. For those of you who are unaware, an integral bolster is a meaty chunk of metal which provides a transition from the blade into the handle on a knife. It also helps bring the balance point of the blade towards the handle so that it's not front heavy. So for this corkscrew, I'll be including an integral bolster for practice and aesthetic appeal. This is the design I'm working with. I want an octagonal faceted bolster that transitions into an octagonal faceted handle. I'm not sure exactly what wood I want to use yet, but whatever it is, I'm going to polish it up really nicely. I've already started by drawing out the body of what is going to become the corkscrew, so now I'm working on isolating that material to create the shoulders of the bolster. You may be wondering why I'm using two different anvils. Well, the smaller 20-pound anvil has sharper shoulders, which makes it easier to isolate material. But it is also made of cast iron, so it absorbs a lot of the energy from the forging, which means the steel does not move as easily on it. The larger anvil, which is a 55-pound Harbor Freight anvil, has slightly better rebound because it's made of steel, so I use it for everything that doesn't require sharp shoulders. That being said, it's only marginally better than the cast iron anvil because it's soft, mild steel, so it also steals a lot of the energy. That's also the reason the shoulders are so rounded. The steel just doesn't have the strength to hold up to heavy forging. Someday I'll be able to afford a really nice hardened anvil, but until then I can make these two work. I may not have nice tools, but at least I can use them to make nice things. So I thought that I would have enough material around here, but I'm not. So I'm going to go ahead and have to forge some more of this out. Now that I've got more material drawn out, I'm moving back to the smaller anvil to re-isolate my bolster. And now I'm going to draw out the body of the corkscrew until it's nice and thin. After cutting off the workpiece, I now need to isolate the tang. That's the part that will go inside the handle to hold everything together. The tang is easier to work in than the corkscrew body because instead of isolating the material in every direction, I only have to isolate it from two directions. And that'll do it for the rough forging. Alright, so here it is as forged. The transition from the bolster to the tang is going to need a lot of cleaning up, as well as the transition into the corkscrew itself. And I definitely have way too much material for the corkscrew, so I'll probably thin that down and trim it as well. I want to do as much of this as possible with hand files, which will take a long time, but gives me a lot more control than the grinder. I'll probably have to use the grinder for thinning out the corkscrew though. Alright, so right now I have the bolster squared up and the transition cleaned up. So now I need to make all of this homogeneous and put in the octagonal facets. Alright, so I have just about everything that I can get done on this before actually curling the corkscrew. So I'm going to fire up the forge and do that. Curling the corkscrew is the most frustrating part of this process. Given how thin the steel is, it cools down in a matter of seconds, so I have to work fast. at this point, the corkscrew is heat treated, and I'm going to go ahead and trim this down to about halfway to reduce the stresses on the screw, and then it's time to work on the handle. I'll be using a diamond round file to cut the corkscrew. I could do it on the grinder, but I don't want to heat it up too much. And with steel this thin, that's a really real possibility. So I'll be using this round file because it's about the only thing that'll cut it besides that. I decided to go with some Koa wood because I feel like it really matches the forged scale finish of the corkscrew pretty nicely. One thing about the Koa wood is it's a bit gummy, so it really likes to grab onto drill bits, and it's a little difficult to file. But after a while, I got it done. I'm going to give myself some reference lines to grind to, then take the handle over to the disc grinder. After all the grinder work is done, I use a needle file to bring the transition all the way down to the bolster, and then I sand the handle to a nice crispy 2000 degree polish. Then the last step is to fill the handle with epoxy and glue everything up. I ended up having to put more epoxy in the handle, but I didn't film it. Then I let it dry in a clamp, and it's finished. To be completely honest, this is probably my favorite thing I've ever made. The facets are so satisfying, the polish the Koa wood took is immaculate, and it's just so different from other things I make. I love it. If you're still here, thank you so much for sticking around. I really enjoyed making this corkscrew, and I hope you enjoyed watching me make it as well. I have a few commissions coming up in the near future, so stay tuned for those. Until then, stay sharp.